biggest thing that I'm noticing with freelancers is, and I think this is where, again, your platform helps, is inability to market oneself. I saw somebody on Twitter the other day, it was like, I had commented or made a tweet about the layoffs. I said, hey, if you've been recently laid off, maybe consider stopping the spiral or stopping the kind of self-fulfilling prophecy of you go get another job, and then in 6 months, maybe a year, maybe a couple of years, you get laid off again, and then you gotta go find it. Maybe you should stop that and become a freelancer, a coach, or something, right? You have a skill that's worthy. And this woman commented back and said, well, it's hard when you don't have money and you don't have this, and fair. But I think part of the thing that I said to her was, again, I didn't know about Revolancer yet, so apologies. But I said, hey, look, go to Fiverr. Like, is it the best? Maybe not. But at least they do the marketing for you. You know what I mean? Like, they can kind of connect you to someone. At least you're going to have some visibility as a place to start. So I think, is it fair to say a platform like yours, if you struggle with marketing yourself, if you struggle with, sales or whatever, joining, a company like yours as a freelancer would be a really, really good way to start their entrepreneur, or like their freelancing journey?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think freelancing platforms, even the ones like Fiverr, absolutely still can do a lot. But I think it's as you scale and as you start to have a few clients, that's when a platform like Fiverr can be a bit of a detriment, with having client relationships outside of the platform. But I myself got started on Fiverr back in 2014, so I freelanced on there. I made for the time, plenty of money for the age I was, certainly. But then I kind of grew out of it. And started approaching clients directly. But at that point, I already had a portfolio. I already had a track record, testimonials, that kind of stuff. So I think it's a good, platforms like that in general are a good starting point. But the great thing about Revolancer is you can use it as a starting point, but also you can, still use it as you scale, because you can speak with clients outside of the platform. We're not gonna, try and crack down on that like other platforms do.
Yeah. So do you have, a favorite platform that you like for freelancers when it comes to social media and marketing their services? Like, what platform did you use when you started to market yourself as a freelancer and to attract clients?
I did a bunch of different things. I remember that Twitter DMs actually worked quite well. Like, I would sort of go and look for companies that have maybe no website or not a great website, and just send them a Twitter DM and do that for like a couple hours every day. And I got quite a few clients that way, actually. But this was, many years ago, so I don't know if it'll still work as well today, but you may as well try. I'd say, like sort of contacting companies via email works well as well, but, with a big caveat of you have to be very creative in how you write your cold email, because people get a lot of cold emails. Businesses get a lot of cold emails, probably from agencies and other freelancers trying to offer the same services you do. So you have to be very creative in how you do that and kind of find those opportunities. But I'd say, yeah, you just kind of have to hustle. You have to reach out, trial and error. Don't kind of spend 6 hours trying to write the perfect email. Just put something, kind of scrappy together, put a couple of variations together, send them, see which one, gets the highest open rate, which one has the highest response rate, and then sort of keep refining that one. So yeah, I mean, it's basically, you just have to put in the legwork at the beginning.
Yeah, but for you would say, like, I would imagine too, if you're like a writing freelancer, then you could do something like Twitter, because obviously it's like highlighting your skill set, obviously, as a writer. Because like for us, we have, I would consider him a freelancer that we were working with through our academy, and that was, I told him, I'm like, dude, like, yes, you can exist on Instagram, but like, if you're a writer and you're a freelance writer, be on Twitter. Because like, people can see your writing and go, I would love to work with this guy. Like, and it's funny because some people, I think, miss this, and they go, well, everyone's on Instagram, so I have to be over on Instagram. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but also, listen, LinkedIn's really good. Again, if you're a writer, but if you're like more graphic design, that kind of stuff, yeah, Instagram, because the visuals, right? Like, that makes sense. And I think it's like, you got to stop and look at what is your skill set, and then what is the platform that best highlights that skill set. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely. But I think you also have to think about where clients are likely to spend time online. Because, for example, if you join, let's say, Behance, which is a great website for showing off your graphic design portfolio, the chances of a client in need of graphic design paying for an Adobe membership to sort of be on that website, I'd say, is very low. Yeah. So yeah, but absolutely. I mean, there, another thing for writers is Medium. That's fantastic. You can kind of publish articles on there. Twitter, as you mentioned, of course, is fantastic as well. And then, yeah, there are a bunch of more visual ones as well. YouTube, if you do anything with media, audio or video. So yeah, I'd say it's still very important to get your content out there as much as possible.
Are you seeing, Karl, like anything, especially because you probably had tons of data on this, given your website, but is there one or more different freelance opportunities that are super popular right now that people really, really need? Like out of all the freelancing, whether it's graphic design, writing, whatever, is there one or more or a few that like are super in demand right now that maybe, again, if you're a freelancer and you're thinking, hey, what do I start with? They could start there.
I mean, the demand generally has gone up across the board. I think our data set is going to be a bit skewed because we specialize mainly in graphic design, web development, marketing, and media. And those are the categories I'd also mention for where the most demand is, but they're also the ones that we kind of push the most. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy with those kind of freelancers and those kind of client projects coming onto the platform. But I would say probably best to try and, like, rather than focusing, like, obviously it's very important that there is a level of demand, but definitely important to consider the level of competition too, because, like, for example, there's a huge amount of demand for, say, graphic design, but I mean, I'm not trying to play down graphic design, but some clients would be happy with somebody who has, done a basic Photoshop course and puts together something kind of scrappy for $100 or something, and they'd be perfectly happy with that because they don't know what, they don't know how to appreciate good design kind of thing. So there's a lower barrier to entry is essentially what I'm trying to say. So I'd say try and find something where there's maybe a higher barrier to entry that you can kind of specialize in, and then where there's demand, you'll face a lot less competition in getting those client projects on board. So if that's, for example, a niche like, let's say, web development with a very specific kind of technology, or there are lots of different things you could do, but definitely something where there isn't so much supply, but still plenty of demand.
Is there do you have like a freelancer in mind? And by the way, you can use yourself too, but like paint me like the dream outcome of a freelancer. Like somebody gets started, what is something they can look forward to? Like for me, for example, when I first got started as a coach, I had a coach / consultant. I had a mentor that I knew that was doing like $1 million deals with companies. And I was like, oh, you can make that much as a consultant? Like, it just didn't, it was like I couldn't even fathom it. And then that's what kind of inspired me to go, oh, you know what? Like, I could do that too. Because, again, what he was teaching, I was like, oh, I could do that in my sleep. And then it became this thing of like, oh, I could do this too. So, is there any stories you have about freelancers that start off and end up kind of hitting big, so to speak?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd say a big one is Alexandra Fasulo, who we have actually worked with a few times already. She got started on Fiverr as a copywriter a few years ago, and now she's kind of known as the Fiverr millionaire because she made in the millions on Fiverr. Now she works with clients outside of that. She's an influencer. She has, I think, nearly 1 million followers on TikTok. More than 100,000 on Instagram. And I mean, the amount that she charges certainly reflects on her making a lot of money, even for this. So I'd say that's a very inspiring story. That's something which you can look up. You can find lots of kind of articles, interviews with her. So that's a very inspiring story. But I'd say, like, on a personal note, and there are many similarities between entrepreneurship and freelancing. And I'd say for me, what I found amazing about freelancing is, like, in some ways it can be more stressful, but ultimately you're always in control. Like you can just sit there and not reach out to any new clients and then not have any client work next month. Or you can be super proactive and then make 3 times as much next month as you did this month. And, and with a 9-to-5 job, you have that safety blanket, but you could work 3 times as hard and still make the same as you do, kind of doing the bare minimum. So I don't know, for me personally, stress, I'm not saying stress is something that I like, but there are things that are worse. And for example, boredom and not being in control for me are much worse than being stressed. So if you're like that, then I think either freelancing or entrepreneurship could be a very good fit.
Yeah, so then what would be in your mind like the difference? 'Cause somebody once told me, really good guy who's a freelancer, and he himself views himself as a freelancer but not an entrepreneur. I found that to be kind of interesting. So do you feel like there's a difference between a freelancer and an entrepreneur, and if so, what is it?
I'd say no, not inherently. I mean, but I'd say the main thing I would point to as being different is an entrepreneur probably typically has a bigger ambition. So a freelancer wants to work by themselves, maybe subcontract some things out, but basically work for themselves and just kind of do that as a lifestyle. Whereas I think an entrepreneur typically will maybe start like that, but then want to kind of have a lot larger ambition and then start working with a lot more people, sort of form a company. But I think inherently they're the same thing. I would say that freelancers are absolutely entrepreneurs. I would call them entrepreneurs.
Yeah, same. And that's why I was kind of going back and forth on it. I think the only thing is, like, again, it's like what I have found to be true is the freelancers that call themselves freelancers versus entrepreneurs is just the mindset of it. Like, to your point, like, if I'm a freelancer, and look, I have no intention of hiring other people. All I want to make is X amount of dollars a month so I can get by, do what I got to do. I just want the freedom to do whatever I want. Cool. Like, you're a freelancer. And that's like the mentality. Versus like if you're a freelancer and you're like, yo, I'm doing this, Karl, for like 2 years to figure out what makes sense, whatever, and then I'm gonna hire out so and so that way I can do more projects, and I'm gonna scale it, and I'm gonna have an agency. Then after I have the agency, then I'm gonna figure out how I can do coaching, and like there's like a natural progression to it, right? And I think that's the mind of that, because I'm like you, right? Like as soon as I start to work on one thing, like you mentioned something earlier, like you would suck in corporate America. Well, I was good, but basically my boss at the time, my corporate job, figured out that they needed to they needed to not just give me a raise, but they needed to promote me every year. Because if they didn't, they knew they were going to lose me. And I asked him why after, because he mentioned this to me, whatever. Because every year, for 3 years, I got promoted until I, finally got to where I was at. And he's like, because you get bored. Like after not even a year, like 6 months, I'm getting itchy. I'm like, I need more responsibility. I need more people to manage. I need more and more and more. Like it wasn't even about the money. To your point, I just was getting bored. Like I got this part down. Like, let's go. Come on.